And 50,000. No, but it's for, I had so, and other things that help, and it's called Spiro. But, Michael Lepper, tested three of them and chose this one. And they're holding it until I was at their expense. New York, Steinway. They're Steinway.
No, we're full, man. We're full.
Three went up there.
There's some chairs back there.
New auditorium was 645 seats. And I have the season tickets too. We have 5 months. School, 2026. So 2026. Another year. It's coming along. Where's his boat?
Up in, I don't remember what it was called. Yeah, I've been sailing there with him. We sailed there when we were so we visited that. Yeah. He lives in Elkins. So that's only half an hour. It's only half an hour.
We kept our boat at the same time. Which is down in the Sutherland. Used to be the entertainment.
Bringing the boat in. I've had a lifetime seeing the entertainment. Michael's Harbor.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Remember one time anchoring and we were with his dad, right? Yeah. And we anchored, it happened to be notice time, happened to be areas that we had a cement bottle. So of course we tried. Oh yeah, there's many times. We had an anchor class when we were in that harbor one somebody was. Last time I was in that, we sailed toward the man. And one of them was Sutherland, and when we were coming in the harbor, one of the vessels stopped. We only have it on one side, and it just, so again, we were entertaining for the harbor.
Oh, yeah. All right, so there's a little canal going through there. And there's a restaurant right above it. That's a great.
Toll road.
Yeah. That current goes through there and. Right.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming this evening. I'm Alice Cooper, the director of the Lancaster Community Library, and we're really excited to have this program this evening, the last in our special Evening With series. Before I introduce Bob, I would like to thank Shelley Robertson who is our fantastic technology manager, who streams our programs on Facebook, works with our speakers, yes, over there near the balloons, and makes sure everything proceeds smoothly. Also, Chandra Johnson on our library staff is our outreach coordinator, and she prepares all these wonderful flyers that you see everywhere at the library, so we stay up to date. I would like to mention as well, we have some very generous donors for our summer reading programs that encompass all ages and are free of charge. The River Counties Community Foundation, the Wiley Foundation, the Connolly Foundation, and the Grace Episcopal Church Yard Sale. So, thank you for all of that. So Bob has been photographing the night skies from his front yard in Kilmarnock for the past 7 years. So we're really excited to this evening see his photographic journey from simple photographs and proceeding to more complex. He explores our solar system, our galaxy, and the universe beyond. He's going to show, he even told me, lots of eye candy. And to be a little more specific, nebulae, star clusters, and distant galaxies. And he's also going to explain to us in a very general, consumer-friendly way how the equipment that he used to get started and how he has progressed to more complicated equipment to produce some of the photos you will see this night tonight that are just so spectacular. So, Bob, welcome.
You got me on? All right. So first of all, what is astrophotography? For me, it's creating photographic images of anything outside Earth's atmosphere. The sun, the moon, the stars, nebula, galaxies. And while there is a practical limit to what an amateur can do, you're not going to see Hubble pictures tonight. You're going to see my pictures. It still amazes me that modern digital cameras are able to do this. And I started out with a digital single lens reflex camera. Now people buy mirror cameras, but it doesn't have to be horribly expensive. I will say though, you know, when I retired, I promised myself that I would get off the learning curve. I lied. The learning curve for astrophotography is steep. There's a ton of information to digest, but it's not intellectually difficult. And I think that's important. I firmly believe anyone who wants to go into it can do it. And I'll try to walk you through some simple, from the simple to the complex. Let's see. Does that help? Okay. So, one more?
Yeah.
Well, we're also videotaping, so I think we need some light. Is that too much, Shelley?
Can you flip-flop the two? That's better. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, media. So, and here's an interesting example. Just taking a picture of the moon. How many people take pictures of the moon and you just get a featureless, washed out core? With very simple coaching, you can take that. That is a single image. It's not difficult to do. The key is the light meter and whatever camera you're using is completely fooled by all the black and that red hot white moon shining at it. And it tries to balance it and it can't do it. With a process called stacking, you can take, let's say, and I did, 100 pictures of the moon and stack them together and a little bit of software and really get that sense of the depth of the craters. This is not, sorry Brad, it's not rocket science. But these are the types of things, and we'll, like I said, we'll go from simple to more complex. I'm also going to inform you that you've been badly misinformed about the seasons of the year. There are not 4, there are only 3. Right now is hot, sticky, buggy, yuck. Coming up in the fall and winter is nebula season. And the winter and spring is galaxy season. So, just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Okay, so, like I said, using a simple DSLR and a tripod, nothing fancy. The next step is this guy. This is called a tracker, and it's basically a clock drive that is designed to rotate at the same speed the Earth rotates, but in the opposite direction. So that when you focus on something in the night sky, it stays steady in the camera's field. Whoa. To take a picture, and I'll show you later, so the Orion Nebula with this, it was a half-second exposure. If you add the clock drive, you can go to a 30-second exposure. And if you add a fancier drive, you can go up to, say, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, having the shutter open, just letting light hit the sensor. So you can see in 2017, just on a tripod, I photographed a partial eclipse of the sun because I was too lazy to go to North Carolina before gridlock, and I did it in the front yard, and I'll show you that. About a year later, I don't know what I did in the intervening time, I bought the tracker and started exploring the night sky. 4 years after that, I bought a guide camera. And the guide camera, in addition to the main camera, the guide camera's function is to lock on a star and tell this speed up or slow down. So it's a refinement as you go, like I said, not more complex, but different. And finally, in 2025, I put my 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. This is the imaging camera. This is the guide camera. That little guy on the far side is called a Raspberry Pi. It is a fully operational computer that runs the whole show, and I interact from my iPad. And it is an amazing piece of kit. Okay, so just a tripod. There's a lot you can do with just a tripod. I'll show you a solar eclipse, the Orion Nebula, and incidentally, I didn't always do things in the order I'm showing you. You should do them. I kind of jumped around a little bit. A lunar eclipse, the Milky Way, and a comet. So this was the 2017 partial solar eclipse, and you see the big warning in yellow. You have to use a solar filter. You can spend hundreds of dollars to get one that fits your lens, or you can go on Amazon and buy a sheet of solar film, which is what I did for about 20 bucks, and a little bit of cardboard and Scotch tape, and make a filter that fits over my lens so that I don't damage my camera or burn out my retina. The only problem is, until you find the sun in the viewfinder, you can't see anything in the middle of the day. It is that darkening. But anyway, these are a couple of many pictures of the moon eclipsing the sun that I took just on a tripod. This is the Orion Nebula.
Wow.
This is, and it's the only time I've imaged it. With other things I'll show you, I've gone back and redone them to get better. I just like this one so much. This is 760 1/2-second exposures. And there's a program called Deep Sky Stacker that you can download for free. And this is one image from those 760 images. And the beauty of stacking is that you take a very faint image and you build it up as you stack them. And the noisy bits are random, so they cancel each other out. So you end up with very strong imaging. The colors are not artificial. That's what the camera reported. Red is what's called hydrogen alpha. It's sorry, I'm a chemist. It's an electron transition from an excited state to a lower state. When you drop down, you get a photon of light. Blue is hydrogen beta, and that's a more energetic emission. And we'll see things with alpha and beta. And a lot of times you see that in the nebula, which is what makes it so interesting. Okay.
So Bob, each one of those exposures in the 760 very quick or?
Yeah, those were half second. And I should have, sorry, thank you. I should have said something at the very beginning. And I don't mean to shut you down, but to keep us from getting too sidelined, I've been given 45 minutes to talk. Questions at the end would be wonderful, but yeah. Each of these was a half second. And this was at 500 millimeters with my 150 to 600 lens, a tripod, and one thing that's very handy, which is called an intervalometer. It's a small device that sits on the hot shoe of your camera and plugs into a port on the camera so that you don't have to touch the camera. If you remember the old film days, we had a cable release. This is your modern cable release. So every time I want to take a picture, I just press the button and it activates the shutter so that I'm not shaking the camera. This is a picture that, believe it or not, my wife and I both got up at 4:10 a.m. This is a partial lunar eclipse. The red part, which is what you expect out of a full eclipse, the blood moon. The blue, so the red is the umbra, the dark shadow. The blue is the penumbra, which is the light shadow. And the white at the very end is just sunlight. So you can see what happens to light in our atmosphere. Blue is scattered, and so it's more on the fringe. Red passes more directly through our atmosphere, which is why you get that coloration of the moon. So Alice said I've taken all these pictures in my front yard, with a few exceptions. This was in Red Feather Lake, Colorado at 11,000 feet during a meteor shower. And I gotta tell you, the Milky Way was striking. And this again is a single exposure. This is not stacked. And this was a comet, I think, last year or the year before. This one gets a little trickier. So you can see some stars and you can see the comet. This is a stack of multiple photos. The problem is the comet's moving very quickly and the stars move as the Earth rotates. So you stack the stars and forget about the comet, and you stack the comet and forget about the stars, and the software puts the two together in a single image, so you have steady stars and the movement of the comet. Again, free software, which is truly amazing in this business. There's stuff you can buy, but a lot of hobbyists, for some reason, are coders, and they write this stuff and they put it out in the public domain. It's absolutely wonderful, because that would be a huge barrier to try to get started and have to drop $1,000 on software. Okay, so before I leave just the tripod, you can shoot, as we said, the sun, the moon, the Orion Nebula. You can shoot the Andromeda Galaxy on just a tripod. If you go on Reddit, R-E-D-D-I-T, there is an astrophotography subreddit, which is packed with information. And if you just search untracked, you'll see all the pictures people have created without anything but a tripod. So the next, like I said, to extend your exposures, and this is this axis. So this device has a tube going through the middle called a polar scope, and you align it on the North Star so that you are perfectly aligned with the Earth's rotational axis. Of course, you're polar alignment is never perfect and it's not a perfect tool. The heavy weight on there is a counterbalance for the weight of my camera, which is like 6 pounds, to make it easier on the motor to drive the unit. This is called a Skywatcher Star Adventurer. So before you can do a polar alignment, the first thing you have to do is figure out how to find Polaris. And one of the things, I'm not an astronomer, or I couldn't tell you more than half a dozen constellations by name and where they are, but only because I've needed them to find things in the night sky. So, fortunately, this is our north sky, north-facing Polaris, almost true north, but not quite. The last 2 stars in the ladle of the Big Dipper point nominally to Polaris. So you can if you can find the Big Dipper, you can find Polaris. You'll notice I have, shame on me, winter, spring, summer, and fall. Polaris, the Earth rotates once a day, but not quite. So Polaris, or the Big Dipper, slowly moves through the night sky as the seasons change. Right now, it's in summer mode, which is what you see on the left there. So now you can find Polaris. You can set your tracker up to be aligned with Polaris. You still have to find your target. What image do I want to take? So the easiest one, and I'll show the first thing I'm going to share with you is the first deep sky object I ever took an image of, and that is M31, which is the Andromeda Galaxy. Now there's a lot of abbreviations you're going to see tonight. You see NGC, there'll be others. M stands for the first initial of Charles Messier's last name. He was a comet chaser in the 1700s, and he was always seeing things in the night sky that distracted him from comets. So he made a list of 110 objects, which are now the Messier objects. NGC is the new general catalog of things in the night sky. New is a funny term because it was finalized in 1888. It has grown since then. We'll also see IC for index catalog, Barnard with a B, Caldwell with a C. There are lots of other astronomers who have made lists, and there's a lot of overlap between the lists. So let's take a look. So I've mentioned stacking. When I tried to image Andromeda, the first 4 nights were unmitigated failures. I collected dozens and dozens of images and I put them in Deep Sky Stacker, and it refused to stack them. Deep Sky Stacker likes stars to be round. Come on. I'm a rookie here, cut me some slack. So on the 5th night, I finally got Deep Sky Stacker to work. And I was all excited that it was going to stack an image for me. Ta-da! Where's my image? The individual pictures look better than that. Something I didn't know. This is what's called a linear image file. It's not the same as a JPEG. Every camera you've ever owned takes linear images, but there's software that turns it into a JPEG by pulling the histogram out of the darkness and pulling on the curves. Sorry, technical terms, but I have work to do. So in astrophotography, you'll spend as much time at the computer as you do outside developing an image. So I went online, I Googled everything, I looked at YouTube videos, I went to Reddit, and lo and behold, this, whoops, no. Oh wait, yeah. Okay. So that's my first deep sky image. I have this hanging on the wall in my office. That's horrible. Sorry. I also didn't know that nothing in the cosmos is green, except maybe comets. So you see the greenish tinge. A couple years later, I went back and imaged M31 again. And you'll also notice how big and fat the stars are. Stars are supposed to be pinpricks. That's the new and improved. That is Andromeda. It's 2.5 million light years away from Earth. It is close from other things I'm going to show you. It's traveling towards the Milky Way at 248,000 miles an hour. The good news is, at that speed and distance, it will take 4 billion years to get here. Okay? Space is big. It's amazing. And the other thing, to show you how big galaxies are and how big, scientists actually expect that the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy could pass through each other without any stars colliding. The distance between stars, even in our own galaxy, is astronomically big. So here we're seeing a galaxy which, until 1925, we thought the Milky Way was it, until Edwin Hubble started exploring the universe and discovered that there are other galaxies out there. You'll also see this little guy and this little guy are dwarf satellite galaxies. Andromeda is a little bit bigger than the Milky Way, but nominally the same size, and we're part of the same galaxy group. Okay, so where else do we want to go? NGC 6992. This is the Eastern Veil Nebula. This is a supernova remnant of a star that exploded. The colors come from intense radioactivity hitting the hydrogen atoms and the light that's coming back from the hydrogen. This distance from left to right or right to left is larger than our solar system. There's big stuff out there. The entire supernova remnant looks like this. This is called the Cygnus Loop. Cygnus is a constellation of a swan, and this is in one of the wings. The Eastern Veil Nebula that I just showed you is here on the bottom. The Western Veil is up at the top. It's also called the Witch's Broom. And this is called Pickering's Triangle. Different people have discovered different parts of this in time. And as you can see from that first photograph, I could only get the Eastern Veil in at the magnification I was using. I had to back way off to get the entire Cygnus Loop. Okay, and one more. This is called Markarian's chain. And each one of these fuzzy bits is a galaxy. The average distance from us is 50 million light years. This is part of the Virgo cluster. It's just south of constellation Leo's tail in the southern sky. And here it is with everything labeled. M84 and M86 were discovered by Charles Messier. A variety of other people discovered all these NGC galaxies. So why is it called Markarian's chain? He was a Russian astrophysicist who was the guy who discovered that many of these galaxies are gravitationally locked together and move together. The others are coincidentally in the neighborhood of the photograph, but there is a relationship among many of the galaxies that they are bound to each other. Okay. So we're still just with my camera and the tracker. And I kind of looked at it as, I kind of like that I can do this with the digital camera. And I was gonna get as much out of the digital camera as I could. Everyone's like, you're using a telescope, right? I'm like, nope. So, galaxy season. The Big Dipper is a very, very rich source of galaxies. I'm not going to show you all of these, but if we look at the Pinwheel galaxy, this is some 22 million light years from Earth with the camera and the tripod. So now what I'm going to do, instead of making it separate, is I'll show you some updates where I've used the telescope. This is with the telescope. Filling the imaging surface with a lot more of the galaxy and a lot more detail. So once we swing into January, February timeframe, when the Big Dipper is prominent in the sky and it's not summer, we can look at some of the galaxies around there. And people say, well, how do you find these things? Well, between Mizar and Alkid, this looks kind of like an equilateral triangle. And I take a green astronomy laser, and I take my best guess, and I point the camera so I can see the laser, and I take a test shot. If it's in the image, I make a few tweaks. If it's not, maybe I'll back off the magnification and try it again. I know I'm in the neighborhood. The Whirlpool galaxy is actually two galaxies. It goes by M51, it's about 24 million light years away. And contrary to what I thought, the larger galaxy is not consuming the smaller galaxy. This is a bound pair, and the smaller galaxy has an orbit about the Whirlpool galaxy. But we step up to the telescope, and to me, it just gets more detailed and prettier. Keep in mind, even though it looks like you're seeing stars in the Whirlpool galaxy, the only stars I can resolve are still in the Milky Way. So none of the stars, with one exception, on the previous galaxy, there was a supernova that was detected about 4 years ago. And you could image it and see that star. I don't have that picture with me. Okay. So another one, if we take Theta through Dubhe and connect those two stars, it points to Bode's galaxy and the Cigar galaxy. These guys are very, very interesting when you put them in the big scope. So, and here, the next couple pictures I'm going to show you are fresh in my learning curve, because we mentioned earlier the red and the blue from hydrogen alpha and hydrogen beta. This is Bode's galaxy, all dressed up for Christmas. So this is a series of images, one just of the galaxy with the red, green, blue detector, the normal detector. I also have a filter that can show me just hydrogen alpha and just hydrogen beta. And I extract those two bits and build them into the file, and this is going to sound insane. You're going to go, no, with something called pixel math, which is a lot easier than it sounds. But what it shows you is the star-forming regions of this galaxy. Where you see red and blue, you can expect that you have a stellar nursery, and that stars are being born into that. But not always. This is the Cigar galaxy. Now, the red here is not, I don't think, a star-forming region, but a jet of hydrogen gas that is emanating from the core of that galaxy. Now, the question is, and I don't know that I know the right answer, but if you went there, would it look like that? We'll never know. At 22 million light years, it ain't happening. I suspect not. I suspect that the human eye isn't sensitive enough to see these things. But it's not artificial because I am still collecting the light that's coming in. I'm just blocking all the other light to kind of amplify the effect. And I also diminish the stars. Most of these targets are in the core of our Milky Way, and the star field is incredibly intense and really distracting from the image. So within a program, another free piece of software called Cirrel, I can separate the stars from the nebula and work on each one separately. And when I bring the two back together, I can do more or less of the stars as I want the image to look. And I'll take some poetic license with that because it would be almost all stars on that screen if you didn't do that. So there are choices. I don't do false color. I mean, you can go in and modify stuff and make it any color you want it. I still want to represent what's out there in space. Okay, so let's turn to the southern sky for a minute. Is everyone familiar with the constellation Orion, or at least his belt? Okay, so you can find Orion's belt. Again, you can use stars within Orion to find nebulae. Fun fact, Betelgeuse is a red supergiant. You know, we've heard it said our sun is an average to small yellow star. If Betelgeuse was placed where our sun is, the Earth would be inside the corona of Betelgeuse. Rigel is a blue-white supergiant. If you replaced our sun with Rigel, Jupiter would be inside the corona of Rigel. And these are not the biggest stars that are out there. So let's see, we're running up against time here. This is the Rosette Nebula because it kind of looks like the petals of a rose. Allow me to ruin it for you. Do you see the eye socket and the eye socket and the nose and the mouth? Oh, now you can't see anything but the skull. Sorry. This is still with the camera. I've not re-imaged this. And most of the nebula that I've shown you are emission nebula. So there are a variety of galaxies, shapes and sizes. There are a variety of nebula types. Emission nebula simply means there's a bright star behind it that is irradiating this gas and dust and causing it to re-radiate light. Reflection nebula, the bright star is in front and it's reflecting back towards you. Dark nebula are so dense you can't see through them. Photographically, not so easy to find because if you can't see the light, what's the point, right? But we have one. This is called the Horsehead and Flame Nebula. This guy up here kind of looks like a little seahorse. That is a dark nebula. The only reason you see it is because of the gases that are lit up behind it. And then the Flame Nebula, there's some very bright stars. This is near Orion's belt. Another interesting thing is Orion's belt is not forever. Those stars are they're not aligned except coincidentally. They will eventually move apart, but as Brad would like to tell me, not in your lifetime. Okay. And we've seen the Great Orion Nebula before. Up in the upper left-hand corner is called the Running Man Nebula because it kind of looks like a Gumby and Pokey figure running across the screen. Okay, getting close to the end here. What you're looking at right there is called the Owl Nebula. Keep in mind, all the nebula are in the Milky Way. I'm sure there are nebula in other galaxies, but I can't see them. The Bubble Nebula, which was on the flyer that Alice put together, okay. This is C11, which is a Caldwell list. That's the Bubble Nebula. This is gas and dust being held out like a bubble with the solar wind of a star that sits in the center of it. Really, to me, very, very cool colors. M1, the first item on Messier's list, and I apologize, this is not a great edition of the Crab Nebula. This is known as a planetary nebula. And it's a bit of a misnomer of a term, and I'll explain it a little more in a minute when we get to a better planetary nebula. But basically what happens is a star not too dissimilar to our sun becomes a red giant and then collapses to a white dwarf and sheds its mantle, its coronosphere, and the white dwarf sits in the middle, and they're generally round shaped, so they kind of look like planets. Remember, this is 1800 time frame. These guys had no idea what they were looking at, other than everything was a nebula, and including back then, M31 was the Orion Nebula, not the Orion Galaxy, because remember, back then the Milky Way was all there was. There are some other things that lurk around. Globular clusters. This is maybe a million, couple million stars. No black hole, just stars. I don't know if there are planets in globular clusters. My guess is they're a bit intense for anything. These sit above and below the plane of the Milky Way, but they orbit the core of the Milky Way, so they're considered part of the Milky Way. There are a lot of these. Quite frankly, they're not terribly different and terribly exciting between them like other things are. So you've seen some galaxies face on. This is what a galaxy looks like edge on. And this is an unbarred spiral galaxy. I believe Andromeda and the Milky Way are barred spiral galaxies. They have a central core that looks like a rectangle. This one is more symmetric. And these are all through the telescope except for the last one. The hidden galaxy is much brighter than we can see in the night sky because it's behind clouds of dust and stuff in the interstellar space, but it's still, this is face on, looks to be possibly barred, I don't know. And then finally, the Helix Nebula, which I think was one of the first ones discovered, that gave the name Planetary Nebula, because it reminded the discoverer of Neptune, with the blue color and the completely circular shape. And again, they have no idea the distances or the true size of these things. Okay. So where do we go from here? More galaxies, more nebula, planetary. I've never done the planets. It is the same telescope, but a completely different optical train to capture planets. Planets are captured with high-speed video, where the exposure is milliseconds. and you might shoot 40,000 frames and stack 10,000. Different software, completely different animal. And I have one more, hot off the presses, which I captured Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. This is the Eagle Nebula. And why this fascinates me, have you ever heard of the Pillars of Creation? Something made famous by the Hubble Space Telescope. That's right here. Those are the pillars of creation. That is not meant to say that this is how life was created. This is how stars are created. And these are believed to be a stellar nursery in the center of this nebula. It needs more work. I went back out last night and the wind, I went home early because my whole rig was shaking and it was just a mess. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. And I didn't really teach you how to do astrophotography because we don't have the time. I have taught it before. If there is interest, we can put together a class either through the library or through Rappahannock Art League. I enjoy teaching, and it's, again, if anyone needs a hobby that keeps you up at night, this is it. So yeah, if you guys have questions, I'm happy to entertain questions that I can answer.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How long does it take on the average to create one image from start to finish?
This is about 4 hours outside with the telescope and the camera. And then in order to make this look better, astrophotography images suffer from vignetting terribly. So you need to create calibration files. Dark files which measure the noise on the sensor, flat files which are used to counteract the vignetting, bias files which measure the noise of transferring the information from the sensor to the memory chip. What am I missing? And light files are the images themselves. And the stacking software stacks each set of files and then does magic to create one final image. Depending on how fast your computer is, the stacking could take 10 minutes, it could take 3 hours, but you don't have to sit there. Then the work begins. Then you need an astrophotography, a piece of software where you can pull on the histogram and play with the curves function and pull that image out of the darkness. So this wasn't terribly difficult. I shot this Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. It probably took me 3 hours this afternoon. But again, it's a learning curve. You remember my first Andromeda and my better Andromeda. As you get better at the craft, your results will get better. And so I may someday go back to that original data and reprocess it and see if there's something better there. The other nice thing about this type of software is I can go out Tuesday like I did, I can go out next week and I can go out a month from now and reshoot the same thing, put it all in the pool and stack it all together to get one enhanced image. The only downside is it goes up as the square root of the effort. So if you go from 1 hour to 2 hours, you make a 40% gain. Then you have to go to 4 hours and 16 hours to get double. So it becomes diminishing returns. Sorry.
Do you have any experience with the Dwarf 3 or C-Star 30 or 50 for imaging?
I've seen the images online. In Reddit, there's a big C-Star community there. C-Star is something a little bit bigger than this as a box, which you set, has its own tripod, and I assume there's an app that you tell it what you want to image, and it goes and finds it and does a lot of the work for you. My only concern is the focal length isn't very long. So anything far away is going to be very small on the image sensor. And for close-in things, it's probably like the Orion Nebula, which is large and close. The Andromeda Galaxy is like 6 full moons in the night sky. It's a very big target. The reason that I've gone from this to a longer lens to the telescope is to access smaller and smaller targets, which the C-Star, I'm afraid, would struggle with. But it's what you enjoy and what you want to do. It's a less expensive all-in-one way to get into the hobby, for sure.
Around $400 or $500.
Yeah, well, this was about $350 just for this, which I'll make you a deal on, because it occurred to me tonight I really don't need it anymore. But yes, sir.
When you first started out, you just used a digital camera,
Yeah.
and what lens do you have?
The lens that's on this one is a 70-300. So I did Andromeda at 300 millimeters. My other lens is a Sigma 150-600. And my telescope is 2032 millimeters. But in order to do deep sky objects, it's f10. You have to step it down to about 1280 millimeters. So you take f10 to f6.3 to make it fast enough to image the night sky.
And what size was your telescope?
It's an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain reflecting telescope. So it's about that big around, but it's very compact and very lightweight.
Yeah.
The equivalent of a refracting telescope would probably be 4 times the weight and that long. So, but there are trade-offs to be sure. I know people who only image with refracting telescopes and won't look at a reflecting telescope.
What are the speed of your lenses? 1.8?
Oh, no. These are, the 300 is probably 4.6 and the 600 is 6.3. But you can raise the ISO. And that's one of the other nice things about the Reddit website and the astrophotography subreddit. They require, in order to post, you have to save all of your equipment, all of your software, and all of your settings. It's a great learning tool. Plus, there are YouTube videos galore. If you say, how do I image Andromeda? You could spend a week watching YouTube videos, but they're full of really good information.
What got you interested in doing this?
That's a very good question. I've been thinking about that. I've had a camera since I was 12, from film to, got my first digital was a Sony f707 with the big Carl Zeiss lens. When I learned how to scuba dive, I brought a camera under there. I mean, I've been fascinated with Jacques Cousteau, so I learned how to scuba dive. I'm fascinated with the Hubble Space Telescope. It'd be cool to try that. I don't know. The first solar eclipse was probably boredom. My wife was in Texas visiting our son and grandson, and I was home alone with nothing to do, and there was an eclipse in the air, so why not? I've always loved photography. Like I've told Alice, people probably know my wildlife photos better than my astrophotography photos. I've kind of balanced that out now because there's nobody in my way in the evening. The other problem with summer, of course, is there's only that much darkness. So despite what we think when we go outside at night, right now it's about 10:15 in the evening before you have astronomical darkness. So that was my starting point Tuesday night, and I wrote it out till about 2 a.m. over at Shiloh School, because they have the Eagle Nebula is very low in the southern sky, and I live in the trees. My front yard is like this. But where I need a low horizon, I have to go find some place that has a low horizon for me to shoot. Yes, sir.
So that 4.5 hours you spent, how much of that was labor intensive with the camera itself? Are you watching it track on its own? Are you checking it periodically, make sure it's doing the right thing?
There's a lot of boredom.
Okay.
It probably takes me 30 or so minutes to get, when I travel with the telescope, everything's broken down. I gotta set up the tripod, I gotta level the tripod. One of my most important things I bring with me is a chunk of concrete like this. I have a little basket under the tripod, and the concrete goes in the basket to stabilize it to the ground and lower the center of gravity of that whole deal. So then I've got to polar align on the North Star, then I've got to calibrate the guiding. And then I take a target and a test photo. I will say that the new kit that I bought is nothing short of spectacular. It does what is called plate solving. Thank you. He knows. What that means is that in that little Raspberry Pi computer are images of all the star fields in the night sky. And when I point it at a target, or when it selects a target, it takes a picture and it says, I'm not quite centered. It can't see the nebula, but it knows the location of every star that surrounds it. And it goes, no, no, ding, 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 time to take pictures. And at that point, there's not much to do, unless like last night, the wind blows and it loses the tracking star, and that gets frustrating. One of the things, I almost had a conniption fit when I put a guide scope on this. There are little LEDs here that glow softly in the evening. They're orange, and they always just glow. And I put the guide scope on, and they start flashing, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And I'm Googling, why is my Skywatcher flashing? And it says, you have a tracking error. It's out of the scope. And then I thought, that tracking scope is pushing it faster and slower, and it thinks it's making an error. It was fine. I was yeah. So there's lots of mistakes that you can make. The good thing is, you just do it again.
How it is calculated the distance between galaxies? How do you know it's 1 billion just light years?
That's a very good question. So, and Alice and I were talking about that a while ago. In order to do that, you need light sources scattered around the universe that are the same intensity, always. And the calculation is known that the further away you are, that same light source has diminished glow. And that it is directly proportional to how far away you are. So it turns out that type 1A supernova is that standard light source in the universe. And if you know some of the distances, you can rapidly find all of the distances. And then, but it's not that easy, because all this stuff is moving. And you know how a train siren goes, meow? Light does the same thing. It goes from red to blue if it's moving towards you or moving away from you. So you have to know how red shifted or blue shifted it is. Save it for the NASA guy. But it's a great question. And back in the 1800s, when they were discovering many of these items, I had no idea how far away they were. They didn't know much about supernovas. What we know about the galaxy has or the universe has exploded in the past 100 years. We went from, in 1924, from one galaxy to two galaxies to, in 100 years, to billions of galaxies, each with hundreds of millions to billions of stars. It's the information explosion can be very overwhelming. And what I rely on is online you can find out the apparent brightness, so how bright it looks to me, not how bright it really is, and the apparent size. So if I look in the night sky, is it one full moon, which is about 30 arc minutes, or is it less? So with just the camera, I was able to image things that were 20 arc minutes and bigger. Andromeda is like 180 arc minutes. With the telescope, I'm down to 4 and 5 arc minutes. Most of those planetary nebula are quite small in apparent size, and I'm okay. We're still good because now we're in questions. Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever seen anything that looks like a UFO?
Nope.
No comment.
But yeah, someone escort her. Just remember that a UFO doesn't mean that it's from somewhere else. It just means you don't know what it is.
Right.
And I think people lose sight of that. UFO, alien, boom. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of physical phenomenon in our world, like ball lightning. No one had a clue, and it's weird looking. Or sundogs, where you have the right atmospheric conditions and you see 2 or 3 suns in the day sky. There's a lot of things that happen that are very explainable, and probably some that still aren't explainable but have an explanation. So, but no. Seems to me you have to be a Navy pilot to see UFOs.
Have you ever looked at Northern Lights or anything like that?
Well,
I mean, we're a little
mostly we're
south.
too far south, but my wife and I, well, I wanted to go. My wife foolishly agreed to go to Iceland in January. And Iceland is beautiful, and we had a great time, but we were living in London at the time, so it was a very short trip. Didn't see a thing. Then we took an Alaska cruise and spent 3 days in Anchorage. Didn't see a thing. Then last summer, at 10 o'clock, I went to let the dogs out, and the sky was purple. And I was like, come here, you gotta see this. And I have a cell phone picture of it. I didn't have my camera with me. And it's beautiful, but it's not the ribbons and you know, what you really want to see. But no, it's a rare occasion that we would get to see them in Virginia. But going north is not a guarantee because they're not always there.
But we are at the peak of solar cycle 25, so the sun's still kicking it out.
Not here.
Well, not yet.
Yeah. And actually, there's a weather app called Astropheric that gives you a weather forecast. It gives you cloud coverage. It also has a northern light predictor and it will show you how far south. Usually, and it knows where I live because I told it. There's a point on the map and 0 right next to it. So those are your odds. Any other questions? Okay.
Well, thank you all so much.